No one tells you that becoming a man doesn't happen when you finally get it right. Not when you find love, not when you move out, not even when you succeed. It happens the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you. The moment you're faced with more than you can chew at once, most probably the hardest issue you've ever faced thus far. That's the initiation every man must face, and almost none are prepared for. You grow up thinking the world will guide you, that there will be teachers, mentors, people who show you the way, and for a while it works. You follow the map that everyone hands you, study hard, work hard, to be kind, stay focused, and things will fall into place until one day they just don't. You look around and the people who once stood beside you have their own battles now. Your victories don't feel like victories anymore. Your confidence starts to tremble under the weight of quiet questions. Is this it? Is this what it means to be a man? And in that question, that small collapse of certainty, the real journey begins, because that's when you realize something no one warned you about. You can have people who love you, you can have people who support you, but there are places in life where no one can walk with you. There's a road you have to take alone, problems nobody but you can solve. Not because the world abandoned you, but because it's the only way to meet who you really are. That's the first step of initiation, not into adulthood, but into authenticity. The moment you stop being a product of other people's expectations and start being the architect of your own becoming. And it doesn't come with applause, it comes with silence. A silence that both terrifies you and frees you. Because deep down, you know this is where the boy ends and the man begins. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins in quiet ways no one around you would even notice. The laughter that used to come easily starts to feel rehearsed. The group chats that once buzzed non-stop now sit unread. You catch yourself saying less, thinking more, a slow drift from the one you used to be. Not because you've become distant, but because the noise that once filled you no longer fits. There's a shift every man goes through. The world that once felt familiar starts to feel slightly off axis. Parties drain you. Surface conversations lose their spark. You've had these conversations dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of times already. All of it started to lose its appeal a long time ago. All these parties, this talking, you know that it usually leads to nothing. No new friends, no girls, no new projects. Just the empty void of a damn hangover. You're fed up with this. You start craving something heavier, not in the sense of sadness, but of truth, something you can stand on. You see your friends chasing goals, chasing pleasure, chasing belonging, and you love them for it. But deep down, a different hunger begins to form inside you, not for more, but for meaning. And that hunger isolates you, because while everyone else is reaching outward, you're beginning to turn inward. You don't plan this, you don't announce it, you just start moving differently. Your pace changes, your silence lengthens. You begin to notice how much of your energy went into being liked and how little went into being real. At first, you resisted. You push yourself back into old circles, forced laughter that doesn't come naturally anymore. But no matter how hard you try to fit back in, something inside keeps whispering, "You've outgrown this." And that's the pull, the quiet separation before the descent. The moment life starts peeling away everything that kept you comfortable so you can finally see what's underneath. Not gonna lie to you, it's disorienting. You'll think you're losing yourself, but what's actually happening is that you're losing the version of you that was built entirely for others. That's how manhood begins, not with expansion, but with subtraction. Not by adding things to your life, but by stripping away what no longer belongs to your becoming. There comes a point where the distance stops being temporary. It's not a phase anymore. It's not something you can fix with a night out or a few kind words. Trust me. You've crossed into something deeper, the space between who you were and who you're meant to become. At first, it feels like falling, like the ground you spent years building suddenly gave way beneath you. The plans, the goals, the image, all of it starts to blur, and you don't even know why. You just know you can't go back to pretending everything makes sense. This is what Jung called the descent, the fall into the underworld of your own psyche. Every man faces it eventually. It's the part of life no one warns you about because there's no way to skip it and no one can walk it for you. The descent isn't about losing control, it's about losing illusion. You start seeing the scaffolding of your life, all the ways you built yourself around being useful, impressive, good, and you start to realize how much of your identity was never really yours. The mask begins to crack. You feel raw, exposed, uncertain. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. He has your face, maybe even your father's face, but his eyes carry questions you spent years avoiding. Questions about meaning, about direction, about who you are when no one's watching. And this is where most people turn back. They look for noise, for distraction, for something that feels safe, because facing yourself is harder than facing failure. But if you stay, if you resist the urge to escape, something starts to happen. Beneath the confusion, you start to hear the faint hum of something real. A voice that isn't trying to please or perform, a voice that's been there all along waiting for you to stop talking over it. That's what the descent is for. It's not punishment, it's purification. A collapsing of everything false so that truth can finally stand on its own. You'll think you're falling apart, but you're not. You're just falling into yourself. And trust me, you're much deeper than you think. And the further you go, the quieter it gets. Until the only thing left to hear is your own heartbeat. And the realization that this silence, this darkness was never emptiness. It was initiation. At some point, you stop pretending you're just going through a rough patch. You start to understand this isn't a slump, it's a shedding, the dismantling of the person you used to be. You feel it in strange ways. You wake up heavier, even when you slept well. You stop caring about things that used to define you. The trophies on the shelf start to look like props from a play you no longer want to act in. You start saying, "I don't know," more often, and somehow that feels more honest than every confident lie you used to tell. That's how you know the old self is dying. Not with screams, but like most death actually happened. In silence. The boy who needed approval, who lived off reassurance, who thought consistency meant safety, he begins to fade, and it hurts more than anyone admits, because no one prepares you for how painful it is to outgrow your own reflection. You spent years building this version of yourself, polishing him, defending him, selling him to the world, and now you have to let him go. You have to let him die so that something real can finally breathe. You try to hold on. You tell yourself, "I'm fine." You dive into work. You keep moving, hoping momentum can drown out meaning. But deep down, you know it's over. The scaffolding has cracked. The mask no longer fits. The person you used to perform as has become too small for the soul you're becoming. This is what no one tells you about manhood. That growth isn't glamorous, it's not loud or cinematic, and it's quiet and raw and deeply inconvenient. And it's sitting in the middle of your own life and realizing half of it doesn't belong to you anymore. And yet, that's exactly how rebirth begins. Not in triumph, but in surrender. Not by adding more, but by letting go of what's expired. You'll want to run. You'll want to go back to comfort, to noise, to validation. But if you stay, if you let the death complete itself, you'll find something extraordinary underneath the ashes. Clarity. A clarity that can only come after losing everything that wasn't real. A clarity that whispers you are no longer who you were. And that's the point. That's the quiet funeral of the old self. The moment when the boy steps aside and the man, still uncertain, still raw, finally takes his first breath. When the dust finally settles, there's a strange calm. Not relief, not yet, just stillness. You stop fighting, stop pretending, stopped explaining. And what's left is quiet, the kind of quiet that exposes everything you've been running from. This is the part no one talks about, the part after the breakdown, after the shedding, when there's nothing left to perform. You still have friends, you still have family, people still love you, but deep down, you know the truth. No one can walk this part with you. You'll have people who care, who check in, who try to help, and you'll appreciate them. But there's a difference between being loved and being understood. In this stretch of the road, this silence is something no one else can understand for you. Because it isn't about support anymore, it's about sovereignty. You're learning that even the most loyal people can only meet you where they are, not where you're going. They can listen, but they can't carry. They can encourage, but they can't climb. There's a point in every man's life where he realizes that, despite being surrounded, he's ultimately alone in building himself. That's not tragedy. That's truth, is what I call prime solitude. That's the stage where you understand that love doesn't replace responsibility, that you can be loved deeply and still have to make it out yourself. Because the work ahead isn't about connection, it's about confrontation. The confrontation between who you've been and who you must become. It's strange at first. You miss the noise. You miss being mirrored by others. You miss the comfort of having someone else's certainty to lean on. But the longer you sit in that silence, the more you start to feel something new. Stability. The realization that your own presence is enough, that you can hold yourself, that you can survive the absence of applause and still be whole. And once you taste that, once you feel that quiet force, something fundamental shifts. You stop chasing belonging and start cultivating being. You stop needing rescue and start building roots. You stop performing strength and start living it. That's the secret no one tells you about becoming a man. It's not about proving yourself in front of others. It's about proving to yourself that you can stand when no one's clapping. And in that solitude, you begin to see clearly. You begin to respect yourself because now you know you don't need to be carried anymore. You're not lost, you're becoming. Prime solitude isn't the end of connection. It's the foundation of it. Because until you can stand on your own, you'll always need others to remind you who you are. But once you've met yourself in the quiet, you'll never forget again. That's the beginning of peace, not the absence of others, but the presence of yourself. There's a moment somewhere deep in that solitude when you start thinking about your father. Maybe he's still here, maybe he's gone, maybe he was never really present even when he was around, but suddenly you start seeing him differently. For the first time, you might feel like you're connecting with him on a whole new level. He's not a symbol anymore. He's a man. A flawed, complex, sometimes silent man, trying to make sense of his own life while carrying the weight of yours. And that realization hits like a quiet storm, because for years you believed he had it figured out. You believed there would always be someone older, wiser, stronger, someone who knew what to do. But now you understand that that person just doesn't exist. The men you looked up to weren't God. They were simply walking ahead of you, trying not to fall. And now it's your turn to walk without a map. That's the symbolic father loss Jung spoke about. The psychological moment when a man stops leaning on external authority and starts building internal guidance. It's not rebellion, it's inheritance. You don't reject the father, you absorb him. You take what's good, forgive what was broken, and carry it forward in your own way. You start realizing how much of your anger toward him was really grief. Grief that he couldn't always protect you. Grief that he couldn't always model what you needed. Grief that he too was human, just a man trying to make it out himself. And that's when compassion replaces judgment. That's important. Forgive your parents. You begin to see the lineage clearly. Generations of men doing their best with what they knew, passing down both love and pain in equal measure. And now it's your task to refine it, to end what needs ending, to continue what deserves to last. That's the shift. You stop saying, I wish someone told me what to do, and start saying, now I gotta figure it out myself, I'm responsible for this. It's not a dramatic moment, it's quiet. It's the kind of understanding that humbles you, grounds you, and changes the way you carry yourself. Because now you're no longer seeking permission. You're accepting stewardship. You start standing differently, speaking differently, thinking differently, because you know that everything you do, the choices, the tone, the silence, will echo somewhere down the line. And that realization doesn't make you proud, it makes you careful. You become deliberate because you finally understand that manhood isn't about dominance, it's about direction, about being the kind of presence you once searched for. That's the hidden weight of maturity, knowing no one is coming and yet choosing to show up anyway, choosing to be what was missing. You stop waiting for the world to give you a model. You start becoming one. After the storm, you don't rebuild the same house. You build a smaller one, sturdier, quieter. You don't decorate it with other people's opinions anymore. Nah, you fill it with truth, even when it's simple, even when it's bare. That's what rebuilding looks like after solitude. Not a dramatic comeback, not a loud rebirth, just a quiet consistency of someone who finally knows what matters. You start showing up differently. You speak less, but when you do, your words have weight. You listen longer. You stop explaining your choices to people who were never meant to understand them. You stop performing patience just to avoid conflict. You start choosing peace even when it costs you attention. You stop chasing everything that's loud, the validation, the approval, the chase itself. Because you've learned that noise is cheap and peace is expensive. And you'd rather pay the price for peace than spend your life bankrupt chasing applause. That's when people start noticing something in you, a stillness. The same world that used to overwhelm you, too big, too fast, now seems smaller, quieter. It's not that life stopped being difficult. It's that you stop giving chaos your energy. There's a kind of strength that comes from solitude, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that endures. The kind that doesn't need recognition because the reward is internal. It's the strength of a man who knows his limits and respects them, who's not trying to be everything for everyone, who's learned that restraint is power. You begin to carry yourself differently, not with superiority, but with calm authority. You stop fighting every battle that invites you because not everything deserves your reaction. You'll get a ton of energy back for what matters. And that shift, that ability to choose your response, becomes the new definition of control. You start realizing that real strength isn't about force, it's about stability, because you don't build on moving grounds. It's not in how loud you can be, but in how little you need to prove. You've learned that manhood isn't about being unbreakable, it's about being able to bend without snapping. About staying rooted even when the world pulls at you from every direction. And slowly, something changes in your energy. You stop trying to be impressive. You start becoming intentional. You start valuing simplicity over spectacle, depth over distraction, silence over validation. Because now you know that everything real, peace, purpose, self-respect grows in silence. And that silence no longer scares you, it feels like home. You carry yourself like a man who's been to the bottom of his own soul and came back with the fire still in his hands, not to burn others, but to light the way. That's what the rebuild looks like. Not a return to who you were, but a rise into who you were always meant to be. Eventually, the silence that once felt heavy starts to feel holy. You stop fearing it, you start listening to it, and in that stillness, something shifts, not outside you, but within. You realize solitude was never punishment, it was preparation. Every loss, every silence, every distance, all of it was teaching you how to stand on your own 2 feet. How to move through the world without waiting for permission. How to be guided, not by noise, but by your own inner compass. You look around and see the same world, same streets, same faces, but something in you has changed. You're no longer reaching for affirmation. You're no longer chasing the echo of other people's approval. You've learned to trust your own reflection. This is what becoming a man really means. It's not about reaching the top. It's about being able to look in the mirror and know I can depend on myself. Even if everything collapses again, I'll rebuild. Even if no one understands, I'll keep going. Even if love leaves, I'll stay grounded. Because my peace no longer depends on what stays or goes. You start walking lighter, not because the weight disappeared, but because you've grown strong enough to carry it without resentment. You start loving quieter, with intention, not need. You stop explaining your worth, you start embodying it. And one day you'll realize something simple yet profound. You're no longer searching for the man you wanted to be. You become him. Not the loud version, not the invincible one, the real one, the man who faced his darkness and didn't run. The man who faced grief, frustration, losses, and understood that strength isn't found in control but in calm. The man who carries his silence like armor, not to keep people out, but to protect what's sacred within. That's the quiet coronation no one sees. No applause, no moment of arrival. Just a deep exhale that feels like home. Because you finally understand that solitude didn't separate you from the world. It connected you to yourself. And in finding yourself, you found everything else. So if you're there now, in the in-between, in the stillness, in the stretch of silence that feels endless, stay there. That's not the void, that's the forge. That's where the boy burns off and the man begins. And when you rise from that solitude, slower, calmer, unshakable, you'll understand why no one told you this part. Because it can't be explained, it can only be lived.